Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. It's been 5 days since my last confession. I tried to hurt a man last night. Well, I did hurt him, just not as much as I wanted. He hurt me too, if that counts in my favour. Plus, he was asking for it. It happened at work. Yeah, I'm still a rent boy. I can't pretend this is the career I dreamed of as a kid, but let's face it, I was never going to be a womble, was I? Most of my clients are actually pretty decent, just lonely old men who can't get it anywhere else. I like the first-timers best. You can always tell they're a bag of nerves, unsure of how to act, terrified that it's a mistake. Just like I was my first time. I found I'm good at reassuring them. That seems to be one of my strengths, and words obviously spread because I'm getting a lot of first-timers now. It's nice to feel I'm making a mark. I still see a lot of Hogleg, by the way. He's at the other end of the scale, very experienced. It's funny, the first-timers like me because I act like I know what I'm doing. Hogleg likes me for my innocence. It's all relative, I suppose. It's not hard to seem unworldly beside a man who uses an AK-47 as a tin opener. So anyway, last night I'm picked up by this guy. He says his name's Graham, which I doubt, because he says it with a bit of a giggle, and anyway, they never give their real name. But this one doesn't even look like a Graham. He's got this daft face, big curly hair and spots, only he's too old to have spots, so they look ridiculous. It's like a pensioner wearing a baseball cap. It looks like a Billy or a Tommy or a Frankie. One of the E names. Definitely not a Graham. Anyway, we go back to his place, and to begin with, everything's pretty typical. He's not a first-timer. Too relaxed, too bouncy, like a kid on his birthday. They're not usually like that, so this is my first sign something's up, but at this point I don't think much of it. I took it as a compliment. So I get to work, and he's really fussy about where he stands and how we're positioned. That I do find odd. But I go along with it, so there I am doing my thing, and he's all and ah and oh, that's so good, all the usual moans and sighs. Only it's really over the top, like in a porno or something. I figure he's doing it for my benefit, and I want to tell him he needn't bother. But of course I don't, on account of having a mouthful of cock. He pulls out before, reaching climax, which is a mixed blessing. I don't know if you've ever tasted cum, Father? No? You're not missing much. Put it this way, if it was a flavour of crisps, I don't think salt and vinegar would have much to worry about. So I was glad to be spared that, but on the other hand, it meant he wanted to keep his erection. And that meant he wanted to stick it somewhere else. Well, I'm not going to give you a thrust-by-thrust account. Things proceeded much as you might imagine. Though he was still being very particular about how we were positioned, even stopping a couple of times so we could turn around, and still coming out with the over-the-top sound effects. All very strange, but then it would be more strange to have a client who didn't act strange. There's one guy I see to occasionally who likes to pretend he's a toddler, and one who can't seem to engage in any intimate act without singing the theme song from the Muppet Show. So I'm not unduly disturbed by this weird behaviour. But then I hear a sound from the wardrobe. I suppose I describe it as a thunk. It's the sort of noise you get if you walk into a wooden door, or, as I'm beginning to suspect is the case, if you step too far backwards while hiding in a wardrobe. I'm really suspicious now, to the point that I make Graham withdraw while I investigate. His frantic insistence that there's nothing to worry about, only serving to confirm my suspicion. So I pull open the wardrobe door, and yep, there's a man inside. I couldn't believe it. What made the situation even more absurd was how he chose to deal with it. At first he seemed to be trying to blend in like I might not notice him. And when he realised that wasn't working, he just tried to look really casual, like he'd just been hanging around in there and there was nothing weird about this. Oh, and did I mention he was clutching a camcorder? Obviously these two mates had decided to make a gay porn movie and I was the star. And what if Graham had been so concerned about how we were positioned, he was bloody directing. Well, I just wanted to get out, but I wasn't leaving behind the footage they got in that camera. That's when I got violent. See, I know what I did next is a sin, but you've got to say that's mitigating circumstances, surely. It's not exactly like the odds were in my favour. I'm naked and outnumbered, but I've got to get my hands on that camera. I did have a few things going for me. The guy with the camera was seriously, massively fat. He was wearing a wardrobe, for fuck's sake, and even that was tied around the waist. Then there was Graham, who'd got his trousers round his ankles. Plus, since this was his house, he was more reluctant to destroy it than I was. It turns out you can put up a pretty good fight using a DVD player, a VCR, 2 ice skates, and an electric fan. Oh, and if you're ever short of mace, Mr. Sheen makes a very effective substitute. I kind of went into a rage. I think I shocked them, actually, because they barely fought back. I'd have to smack them both round the head with a VCR anyway, and they didn't do much after that. I grabbed the video camera and legged it. I'd left my clothes, but there was a long coat downstairs which kept me decent until I got back to Mrs. Lipinska's guest house, where I was able to reflect on what had just happened. Seriously, who does that? Filming someone without their consent? It was a total violation of my privacy. I'm just relieved I caught the bastards out, or next week, God knows he'd been perving over me on, I don't know, knobupthebum.com. And in my position, I can't exactly afford to have my face broadcast all over the internet. Not that my face was the focus, but still, if anyone recognises me, I'm dead. Or rather, the world will know I'm not. I was thinking about this, and I looked down at the video camera lying next to me on the bed, and it gave me an idea. I put on my long coat and headed out to Elizabeth's house. I enjoyed filming her. She's still got her arm in plaster, so she's off work, and it was nice to watch her just pottering about the house. And then she went upstairs to change, which was great, because she didn't pull the curtain properly, and I'm pretty sure I've got a couple of glimpses of bra on film. I've got nothing to play it on, but it's something for the future. The only grey cloud is the reason she was getting changed, tarting herself up for fucking Quentin. They've been spending a lot of time together this week, too much time. He's not good enough for her, that bastard. He's not good for her. I'm good for her. Why can't she see that?